a research which I read last week. It was with doctor. It's a research they did in various hospitals in Poland, and they had to analyze certain, I think, colonoscopy or X-rays, which was normally a part of their work. And they every time they're like, oh, they had to look at the picture. Oh, there's something wrong, and there's something wrong, and there's something wrong. Now the AI was taking over it. What that research has shown is that after a while these doctors were using the AI to do the analysis of the X-rays, they let the doctors do it themselves again. And what's proven is that their capability has declined by 26%.
Wow.
Indeed. Wow. Yeah. So that shows that it doesn't matter whether you're a student and you don't want to write, or you're a doctor and you're too lazy to have a look at these X-rays. But if you stop doing it, you lose your capability.
Welcome to the Feria TechCast. We'll bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today, we are joined by Arnold Beekes, the brain fitness trainer who helps professionals and leaders break free from mental and emotional straitjackets to unlock their full creative and innovative potential. With a unique background spanning 20 years in technology and organizational leadership, followed by 20 years in psychology and personal development, Arnold brings a rare blend of technical and human-centric insights. His work focuses on unconditioning the mind, reversing societal programming that limits creativity and trains professionals to move from simply fitting in to truly standing out. Today, we'll explore why mental fitness is declining in the age of AI and how engineers and innovators can rewire their brains for breakthrough thinking, and what it means to build a mind that thrives in complexity rather than conformity. So, Arnold, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Happy to be here.
Great. So, we dive into the question. So, firstly, you have a fascinating background, spanning 20 years in tech leadership and then 20 years in psychology. What did you see in the tech world that made you pivot to focus on the brain?
Well, that was not immediately the case. Yeah, it's a journey, it's a trajectory where each time you experiment, you get new experiences, you learn new things, then you add that page, and then you add that, then you go there, you go in a different direction, and then all of a sudden something new emerges, but you didn't know that you were going there. Yeah, so I'm completely not saying that after my leadership positions in the technology industry that I immediately knew what I'm doing right now. Absolutely not. But the main thing which helped very much drive that direction was that I worked in the service business within the technology industry. So service is not product. And what I noticed in managing, I manage quite a large groups of people, is that it's the inner behavior of people which determines what happens in business, and not business plans and metrics and everything else. No, it's what is going on inside of people, and that determines what they do and how they do it. And that is what I took further. Like my first experiment was with what I call employee engagement, because that is what I believed, and I still believe, is that you need to engage people, and then they will like what they do, they will appreciate, they will change, they will implement with what you have. So, and from, if you start with employee engagement and starting what's driving that, how's that working? Well, with many steps, I end up where I'm today, focusing on brain fitness. But it's essentially still the same. It's like that in businesses, in any business, people need to see and understand that they're called human resources. They're called employees. That's not true. In essence, they're people. They're human beings, and you should leverage that aspect rather than treating people like cogs in a machine.
Wonderful. That's quite an amazing journey. So tell us about what you call unconditioning. So what does that process actually look like for someone who feels trapped in a high pressure tech job?
Well, I must say I'm on top of my leadership positions in technology. But even before that, I became a coach, sports coach in the Netherlands. I was at 17 years old, the youngest certified field hockey trainer coach in the country. Actually, this year I'm coaching people for 50 years. So coaching has been a essential part of, I would say, who I am and what I do. And in coaching, if you go to coach training or you read books about coaching, sooner or later people will talk about limiting beliefs. What are limiting beliefs? Basically, and that coaching is about helping you, enabling you to remove those limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs like, I'm not good enough. I cannot do that. I didn't train for that. I I cannot grow. I cannot learn so fast. All these things that we have hundreds of these things. And coaching helps you to that you yourself, because you get to do the work, the clients get to do the work to remove those limiting beliefs. So while working with it through most of my life, I realized that on top of those limiting beliefs, there are something what I call straitjackets. And straitjackets is like, well, you know what a straitjacket is, where people are in mostly in an asylum with mentally ill people, and they put them in something that you cannot move and you cannot hurt yourself and other people. And but they are put on you from the outside. A limiting belief is what you basically you do it to yourself, because those thoughts are something which you create yourself. That's the limiting belief. A limiting belief is inside out, and a straitjacket is something which is put from society on you for many reasons, and it's outside in. So straitjackets, limiting beliefs. What unconditioning is I help you to enable you and to realize and basically to change and to remove those straitjackets and limiting beliefs. That is unconditioned.
Wow, that's wonderful. So you say people are being robotized and robots are being humanized. So what do you mean by that? And how exactly is AI accelerating this trend?
Well, thank you for that question, Ezekiel. I came up with that. That's my why. People are robotized and robots are humanized. I don't think that's a good thing, and I'm trying to change that. So that's the why of my current work. And I came up with that slogan more than 10 years ago. It was already then that I realized that that is the case. Is that people are having less friends, less relationships. They're numbed down. They don't have energy. Well, what's happening right now? People can hardly read. People cannot write. People cannot remember things. People only do things which have instant gratification. And all of those things are, in my opinion, caused by these straitjackets, and some of them by these limiting beliefs. But that makes that people are more and more and more becoming the same. Well, that is what a robot is. Yeah, a robot acts predictably, use the same behavior. It's quite automatic. That is what you're supposed to do. So I think that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for society. It's not a good thing for the individual's health and well-being. It's not a good thing for progress. And we talk about innovation and everything else. If you're a robot, robots cannot innovate themselves. If you make people into robots, what is happening as we speak, I think that's a thing we need to be changed. And what now everybody is excited about is that, oh, look at these robots, look at what they can do. They can make coffee, they can cook a meal, they can clean out the dishwasher. They can dance. They can jump. They can run. Oh, it's so great because they behave like humans. So that is like, yeah, robots are humanized. So the trend in society is that we make people into robots and robots into people. I'm like, that's stupid. That's not good. So coming back to your question, Ezekiel, like, what's the role of AI? AI is accelerating this because it makes people more into robots and incapable of doing things which are really essentially human. And AI makes that the robots can do a lot of the work. And it's not only the robots, it's obviously also the software models and everything around it. That the robots, and in combination with AI and robots run by AI, are taking over our work, our jobs.
Interesting. So, how can we maintain our cognitive edge in the world where we are constantly surrounded and compared to AI?
It's a very good question. The main thing is it it might be sound contradictory, but to use AI as less as possible because there is a and there's now a lot of research coming out which talks about people's de-skilling. They call it you lose a certain skill which you had before because you're using AI. It's called de-skilling. And by constantly using for everything the AI, you lose your own capability. So what I say to people is that yes, it's a good thing to kind of collaborate, work with the tools for some stuff which you otherwise cannot do or would take 6 months to do. That's fine. But not say I'm not going to write anything anymore because I let AI write it, then you lose that skill. You lose the capability to write. That's not what you want. So the key thing what people need to understand is that they need to find a balance in when am I going to use it and when am I not going to use it. And you have to be constantly very, very conscious is that, hey, is that the skill I want to keep? Is that the skill I want to learn? Is that something, or is it something which I don't care whether I can do it? So be very conscious about your own skills and whether you want to maintain them or whether you want to lose them.
That sounds interesting. So, tell us, what is digital dementia and why is it particularly affecting engineers and knowledge workers?
Well, particularly these people are kind of non-stop on the screen. I already see people walking to the bus station each day and they're walking like this. It's like they got this in front of their face. They're being driven by them. I think it's becoming their boss. It's yeah, it becoming their guide dog. Yeah, and that is really really not good, and it's impacting people in a very very negative way. So again, it's like it's the usage of the phone and being constantly, yeah, and if you're not on the phone, you're on your laptop or PC, or when you're at home, maybe you're at your television. It's everywhere. It's screens. So you need to spend time without screens. You need to be talking to other people, look other people in the eye, connect with other people. So by constantly being on screen it's bad for your health, but it's also bad for detaching. You need to detach. Detach means take a distance. Look at things from a distance. When you look at things from a distance, you can see better. Yeah, it's like I think it's now the African Championship football going on, correct?
Actually, I'm not really current on football updates.
Oh, you're not. Okay, okay. Well, I'm pretty sure it is. It's the African nations football tournament, yeah, where Nigeria plays against Uganda and things like that. Yeah. So there are all these big stadiums which you have in Africa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a spectator in the stadium. You can see it, but it depends on where you are in the stadium. There are always places in the stadium which you cannot see very well. And maybe
Yeah.
if you sit very high in the stadium, you can see it better. But then, well, the players become like little pawns. But what I say is that imagine now you're in a helicopter above the field. Then you can see everything what's happening. You can see every place in the world. But so in life and in work and as an engineer, you need to hop into the helicopter now and then, because then you take a distance and then you see everything what's happening on the pitch.
Wow, that makes sense and sounds really, really amazing. So tell us, what's one simple practical thing a listener can do today to start boosting their brain fitness?
Yeah, it sounds very simple, but I think it's one of the most difficult things to do. And that is be kind to yourself. Most
Mm.
people, even not all people, you're not kind to yourself. You're
Oh, wow.
always criticizing yourself. There's this inner voice which is also said, Ezekiel, you should have been prepared earlier because Arnold had to wait. Ezekiel, you should ask a different question. Or it's like, yeah, or yeah, that voice is going on from the moment you wake up, and even in your sleep, it's bothering you. Yeah, and that voice is called the inner critic, and is criticizing you for everything you do, the food you eat, the meal you prepare, what you said to a friend, and everything. It's always criticizing. Main thing for your brain fitness is that you completely start to shift it around and start being kind to yourself. Instead of being an inner critic, start being an inner cheerleader. That's what I
Wow.
reckon.
Wow, that's great. Like you said, it's pretty simple, but it doesn't sound like it will be that simple to implement on a day-to-day basis. Well, I think that's a very, very, very great tip. So, tell us, why is mental illness exploding in fields that are supposed to be all about logic and problem solving?
What do you mean with the connection with logic and problem solving?
Fields like mathematics, engineering, and those technical fields that connect science to problem solving.
Yeah, but what do you mean in relationship to the brain fitness thing?
I mean, why do people experience mental breakdown in such fields?
I don't believe that people have mental illness. We are labeling everything as a mental illness or as a mental disorder or mental dis-ease. Most people are absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Sometimes we are angry. Okay, it's part of life. It will disappear. Sometimes you're sad because you lost a friend or you didn't get achieve such a result as you want it to be, so you're sad or you have sorrow. Or people sometimes have problems with focusing because they've been watching the screen all day and then they cannot recall anything anymore. Basically, most people, not all, but for I would say 90% of the people. There's really nothing wrong with your brain. There's nothing wrong. You don't have a mental illness. You just have a temporary case where you have to deal with personal, societal, environmental problems. So there is no such a thing as a mental illness. But the problem is, and it's actually a straitjacket where people are saying, oh, yeah, you're depressed. Oh, okay, okay. I think you have a mental illness. Go to the doctor. And then the doctor says, oh, you're sad. Oh, you're already 2 weeks sad. Oh, yeah. You must be depressed. Let's send you to a therapist and let's give you some medicine. That's totally not true. And that's totally the wrong approach.
Interesting. So that's quite a good perspective you put it into. Tell us, how does or let me put the question this way. Does constantly conforming to corporate culture or team processes actually damage our ability to innovate? If it does, and how?
You're 200% right. Absolutely damages your capability to come up with new ideas, and it can be anything, can be products, services, can be processes, can be tools, can be anything. Why is that? Because the main tool in business, but also in society, is to use fear. We use fear to control you. It's like, Ezekiel, if you don't do what I say, I will kick you out. Ezekiel, if you don't do what I say, I kick you out of the team. I fire you. Yeah. You will end up in jail if you don't do what I say. It's everything, and now it's that is totally exploding everywhere. I would say 95% of all the social media messages, everything is based on fear. But the goal of fear is to control you. Because if you're like, ooh, I don't want to get fired. I want that my boss is happy with me, or my father, my mother, my friend, whatever. Then you're shrinking. You're like, ooh, well, I don't want to have these problems. I don't want to get kicked out. It's like, yeah, I have some new ideas, but they're really wild ideas. My boss will not like it. Let me numb down the idea and not share my full idea because maybe he thinks I'm crazy. That's happening all the time. That's why whether you talk about big companies, whether you talk about small companies, people are afraid to come up with super ideas, with wild suggestions. They don't have the courage to do so because they are afraid. So the conformity is extremely limiting the capability of the organization itself and the individual to innovate.
That's wonderful. So tell us, if someone is performing well outwardly but feels empty or stressed inside, so what's usually missing?
What is missing is the connection with your heart.
Hmm.
But most people don't know, Ezekiel, is that we actually have three brains. Did you know that?
Uh,
People associate brain with the lump of meat below your skull, and they think that's my head, that's my brain. But we also have a gut brain, and we also have a heart brain. And for the people who say you feel empty, I think it's a very sad word. It's a correct word because I notice it with a lot of people, but I find it personally very sad because they're just doing something because the boss tells it to do. They're not really engaged with the business. They don't really like what they're doing. They don't love it. They're not passionate about it. Their heart is not in it. That is, in my opinion, what creates the emptiness.
hmm. I see. And I mean, that was a really wonderful classification of the brain that you did there. I'm not sure I've heard about that before, but it sounds really cool. So tell us, Arnold, what role does neuroplasticity play in helping someone who feels stuck creatively or professionally?
Well, the problem is that most people are told or think that by the time they're, let's say, 25, that they finished education, they started working, that they won't grow any further, both in terms of personality, who they are as a person, but also in their work. Well, they know they will gradually, hopefully, they will make progress, but in their brain is like, no, I'm done. I got my diploma, I got my job and everything. Now and then there's something new I will do, whatever. That is totally incorrect because you can still grow and learn. That is neuroplasticity, is basically creating new connections, new wirings between neurons in your brain, and there are billions of them. And that can go on until you die. So
Hmm.
that means you can still learn and grow if you're in your 80s, in your 90s, if you're 56, it doesn't matter. So you can still grow and learn because, well, there are even new neurons which are being, let's call it, born in your brains. Your brain is not the limitation. Think that the brain is the limitation because, oh, I'm getting old and I'm growing like that. Totally not true. You can keep on learning and growing and using your brain. And there I'm saying something. You have to use it because if you don't use it, you lose it. Yeah?
Mm.
And true for your body, that is true for your brain. If you don't use it, you lose it. And that's why I'm to a certain extent opposing the AI because it means you're not using parts of your brain. And by not using it, you lose it. If everything you write, your emails, your a thesis, a project plan, everything you let the AI write it, that seems very convenient, but it means you lose that capability. It will lose, and it's not only that. It's like there's been a research which I read last week. It was with doctor. There were it's a research they did in various hospitals in Poland, and they had to analyze certain, I think, colonoscopy X-rays, which was normally a part of their work. And they every time they're like, oh, they had to look at the picture. Oh, there's something wrong, and there's something wrong, and there's something wrong. Now the AI was taking over it. What that research has shown is that after a while these doctors were using the AI to do the analysis of the X-rays, they let the doctors do it themselves again. And what's proven is that the capability has declined by 26%.
Wow.
Indeed. Wow. Yeah. So that shows that it doesn't matter whether you're a student and you don't want to write, or you're a doctor and you're too lazy to have a look at these X-rays. But if you stop doing it, you lose your capability. That's not
Mm.
what you want. That's really, really a tricky part. There are already now AI systems which perform 25% better than humans on medical exams. So they're becoming totally obsolete.
Wow. So, is there a way that we can balance using our brains and using artificial intelligence in our day-to-day activity to ensure that we do not actually lose our skills and what makes us humans?
Well, I'm going to put it actually in two questions. If it's real, because the human part, I'm going to shift it from the work part. The work part is that you should really, really consciously decide is like, do I want to use AI for this task, or do I want to use my own capability? So before you start doing it, make a conscious choice. It's not like, okay, I'm going to ask anyway. No, make a conscious choice. It's like, hey, what capability do I want to use? So really think about it before you start. The most important part was the last part of your question. And the last part of the question is like, what can we do to be human beings? It's really, really, I think it's maybe one of the most important questions of this time and age. So it's not, it's very foundational and fundamental question. It's really, really important. So, number one, we have to realize that. Number two is like really plan time to be without screens, without tools. And that means without the phone, an iPad, a laptop, a television. So, do some stuff where you don't need them. And the human being part is connect with other people, talk with other
Mm.
people, get to know other people. And it can be just talk to a person in a shop, say hello to people you meet on the street, and then have a conversation with. It like, or talk to a friend, or like you're now doing is, hey, I'm setting up a podcast to be connected with people all around the world and ask and share and learn. That builds a human connection. You're
Mm.
building right now. You're maybe you're not even aware of it, but you're building a connection with me, and I'm building a connection with you because we're talking human to human. We're not. I'm not saying anything. With most connections these days is like in a chat, and then you send these and a thumbs up and a heart and all of these stupid things. huh?
Yeah.
That doesn't build a human connection. But I can see you smile now. You have a
Hmm.
beautiful
Oh well,
you have a
thank
very
you.
big smile. So it's like that builds a connection. That is the essence of us being human.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, wonderful. So, you sometimes say that we are living in someone else's life. What's the first step to figuring out what your own life and work should look like?
Yes, what I'm saying is that for most of us, the moment we are born, we start to live someone else's life and not our own life. The moment Arnold was born, and I assume with Ezekiel in it, when are you a good kid? When you do exactly what your parents tell you to. Then you go to school. When is Ezekiel or Arnold a good student? When you do exactly what your teacher tells you to do. You might go to some vocational training or university. When are you a good student? When you do exactly what the teacher, the professor tells you to do. Then you go to work. When are you a good employee? When you do exactly what your boss tells you to do. So by the time you are 25, the only lives that you have lived is the life of someone else. You've been living the life of your parents, your teachers, your bosses, your priest, your everybody else. So you're not living your own life. You're living
Hmm.
someone else. And I'm not criticizing it. It took me 40 years to understand this. You see, I was in the same position and very heavily. So it's what happened to most of us. And the tricky thing is we are well, it depends on your legal system, but let's say at least until you're 18 years old, you're dependent on your parents. So you cannot help it. It's like you're stuck with that. But after that, you can only be healthy and your well-being and you can only love what you're doing once you start to live your own life. And that starts with a very basic question. It's the same thing like I said earlier. It's about being kind to yourself. It sounds simple, but it's not. And the simple thing what you need to do is like, who am I?
Hmm. Who am
What
I?
do I who am I? What do I like? What do I love to do? What do I like to contribute? So I would have hoped that these questions are asked me when I was 10, 12, but I was asked these questions in the beginning of my 40s. But that's why I'm sharing everything I know worldwide is like in the hope that young people like yourself hear this and they start asking these questions earlier than I did because I know your life is so much more enriching and fulfilling, flourishing if you have more clarity about who you are, what you want to do, and I start living my own life instead of living someone else's life.
Wow, that's a really, really, really great, great talk you just gave there. So, finally, Arnold, it's been a really wonderful conversation, and I'd like to ask you one more question. Tell us, what does innovation mean to you, and how does it relate to your work in the context of mental and personal development?
It's everything to me. So the thing I love the most is to create something new. That's what I love to do. That's the essence of what it is like. Well, I wouldn't say I'm crazy, but it's like what most people think is frightening is I love to create something from nothing. I like to start with a clean slate. It's like, well, I don't know what it's going to look like, but this is where I'm going to work. I love that. And most people like, oh, I don't know. But what should I do? And where can I find it? And how does it step? And I'm like, you can make me not much happier as like, we don't know it, but it's like, let's create it. So that is essentially a part of my passion of my life. It's like I like three things: learning, creating, coaching. That is in essence innovation. Innovation means that you learn something new because before you can create, you have to know what's the market, what's the size, what are the problems, what things are out there. Then based upon what you learn, you have to create something new. But then it's still useless because you got to find an audience who's going to use it or apply it to. And that's the coaching part. That's what I love to do. So I'm now working on brain fitness. It didn't exist. A few years ago, I I had to deal with a sister with depression and a mother with dementia and Parkinson. Those are now labeled mentally ill. Again, they're not ill, but it's just something which happened. I was like, when you're in that situation, it's very hard to get out, if not impossible. So that's when I said, we need to work on the prevention part. And actually, the good news is that is very, very much achievable. So I was like, we need to work on prevention because otherwise things are not going in the right direction. So, but I'm like, hey, that's what we do with our body. We call it body fitness or we call it exercise or moving. Most people understand that some kind of movement, you can go to the gym, you can go running, you can go walk your dog, you can play tennis, you can play football. But it's like people are like, yeah, yeah, I understand it's necessary. I'm doing it a couple of times a week each day. But like that's the use it or lose it for your body. People understand that. And then I'm like, but what are we doing for our brain? Well, basically nothing. So
Mm.
that's when I realized that like we need brain fitness, but there was nothing. So everything which is now a part of my training, my portfolio, I've created myself. So I've applied my innovation to a problem which I experienced with my family members and with a lot of coaching clients. Is like, I have to create this myself. Yeah. So I saw a need, saw a problem, and I created myself. Everything which is part of my training, nobody in the world has something like I have. And everything which is there, I created. Of course, I build upon knowledge and experience from other people, and I listen a lot to podcasts. I read a lot of books. I learned a lot of articles. I'm studying all the time. But what it now looks like, I created it myself. All the very good questions you asked me and my answers to that, I had to create myself. It's not you. You cannot like Arnold read that book. That's why he gave that answer. No, those things don't exist. There's nobody in the world talking about straitjacket like I am. I created that. That's innovation.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us, Arnold, where can listeners reach you, find your masterclass, or learn more about your work?
Thank you. Yes, there's a website. That's the most easy way. It's called braingym.fitness. Braingym.fitness. There they can find the masterclasses, which are workshops, online workshops, which is kind of targeted at you individually, where you can learn about specific topics like your uniqueness, like relationship, like dealing with emotions, like habits. So those are the master classes. They can find them by at the website. My flagship training program is called From Fitting In to Flying Out. From Fitting In to Flying Out is a 15-week training program where we have one weekly session of 90 minutes where I teach you, train you, coach you to make brain fitness a part of your life. And the last part, I just concluded a new book which I wrote. It's called The Adventures of Dr. Alfred Moore. It's about a traditional medical specialist who changes his life and becomes a entrepreneur. So those are the things you can all find at braingym.fitness. And if you still have any questions or want to talk with me or set up an individual coaching, there's a link to my calendar where people can book a session with me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's been a really wonderful conversation, and really, really excited to have you on the show today, Arnold.
Thank you very much, Ezekiel. You have good questions, my friend.